What's up, everybody? Welcome in another edition of the Oddsmakers presented by SuperBook Sports. I'm Jonathan Von Tobel, Jay Kornegay, John Murray, stars of the program, literal faces of the program, are here today. Here being the SuperBook at Westgate, Las Vegas. John, Jay, what's going on?
Well, I'll let John go first.
Right.
I got a lot of problems, honestly. You know, this headset doesn't work. They brought in our producer, Mike Rigg. They flew him in from Denver to do the show, and I can't even hear anything. I mean, why am I wearing this thing? This is ridiculous. It doesn't even do anything. It's just a prop.
It's very true. It's hard to work in conditions like this, I will say. As a fellow star.
This guy Rigg goes to Portugal for 3 months, and he comes back. He gives me a busted headset, and he tells me to do the show. Oh, sure, let's start the show.
On the SuperBook dime, from what I hear.
Yeah.
Can't afford John a new headset. All right, how was NFL Week 15, College Football Conference Championships? What did that look like for you guys last weekend? Anything notable in terms of results? All right, good.
The Friday game. Hey, the Utah game was.
Well, Utah
we
game,
won a ton on the Pac-12 championship.
Yeah, Friday was a really good day because of Utah. I mean, of course, everybody was on USC, but the other days were just pretty much break even. I mean, it wasn't anything extraordinary, that's for sure. But the handle was good Saturday, even though I don't know, we had kind of a lackluster championship Saturday compared to years past, but. Action was okay. I thought it was, it's definitely affected during the holidays. During the holidays, things start to slow down a little bit, and that's exactly what we saw this weekend.
Did you guys have anything notable to pay out in terms of conference championship futures? These are about the times, right?
Not really.
Yeah.
There's a lot of favorites won the conferences. Kansas State, I know there were some tickets on them, but Georgia was a big favorite. Michigan was certainly not a long shot at all. Utah was one of the favorites in the Pac-12. Really wasn't anything too noteworthy.
What about the National Football League? What favorites? 13-1-1 straight up or something like that this last weekend? Is that good for bettors? It's generally different for every single book. So judging by your guys' reaction, nothing crazy from Sunday in terms of results that were bad for you?
Yeah, if you were to tell me that stat before they were played out and was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be a rough day, but we actually did okay. We broke even. Despite all the favorites coming in, we had some pretty good house play in here, some really big players, and there was a mixture of results with them. Again, it was just a break-even day, but if you would have told me 13-1-1 or whatever it was, I would have cringed and said, okay,
we would have done okay if Von Tobel's Colts could have covered the spread.
Yeah.
Or at least cover the first half. They're down by 1. They got the ball with like 50 seconds left in the first half. They throw a pick. Yeah. And Dallas scores a touchdown. Halftime score, I believe, was 21-13. First half spread was 7. What do you say about that, John?
Well, I would say that they need to lose games so they can get one of these young quarterbacks. So
yeah, but as a paid influencer for SuperBook, like yourself,
okay,
you should care about the bottom line of the company.
It's a very good point. I was also told my future's on the rocks. So you know what? That was terrible.
Murray's still bitter. He had
I was bitter.
Plus 32 in the fourth. It's like, sorry.
I was not happy with that.
John, before we move on, I feel like, do I want to give you the floor to make a joke about Jeff Brum and the decision to kick a field goal to make that a 9-score game when they were down by 2 scores?
Well, that wasn't good for us either. You know, honestly, we had some big bets on Michigan there, and when they did that, I actually thought we were going to cover, and then they do the onside kick. Michigan could have kneeled it out.
Mm-hmm.
They could have just kneeled out the game. I think Coach Harbaugh was aware of the point spread. If I'm being honest with you, I'm not accusing anyone of anything, to be clear. It's just what I believe.
I think Harbaugh is more of like I don't know what the term is that is safe for a podcast. So also say a guy that really needs to prove himself for some reason despite success. So
you're kind of accusing him of knowing the point spread, right? But nothing beyond that. That's what I'm
outright accusing him.
No, of course.
What percentage of coaches do you think know the point spread these days?
All
of them?
I think every single one of them.
I think so too. You can't even avoid it. If you watch a pregame show nowadays, all they do is talk about betting.
Let's look at Nick Saban.
They barely even talk about the game anymore.
Nick Saban was out there begging to media during conference championship weekend about his team making it to the playoff. And one of the points he kept making was we would be favored, I think, in like 2 of the 3 games or whatever. What he kept making the case. He brought it up. He knows. They all know.
Times change. I've had one coach ask me what the point spread was. I mean, that was like 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
That was the first time and the only time that they asked me. But as soon as they found out that I worked for a sports book, it was like taboo. They'd walk away.
Just stop talking to you. Or maybe it was
pretty much.
Nowadays, that same coach would probably want to be paid to be an influencer for the sports book.
Just like me.
Neil.
just like John Von Tobel.
We move on. National Football League Week 14, games of the week, as we do here on the Oddsmakers. Jets at Bills. Jay, we will start with you. A somewhat interesting game. You guys, not a real adjustment from your guys' look-ahead line. You guys look ahead was 9. You reopened at SuperBook at 9.5. The total 44. So we haven't had a real move here. The only thing of note is that Mike White and the New York Jets are playing competent offense, and the Bills are kind of rocky with the way that they've been playing lately.
Well, they looked pretty good. The Bills did last week, and I got to say the Jets keep plugging along, and they're surprising a lot of folks out there. White has really improved this team. They had a chance to win. They could have won that game against Minnesota. Big game for both teams. Jets look like they're vying for a wild card. Bills are still trying to get the number 1 seed. The Chiefs I think the Chiefs and Bills have the same record. You got a couple of teams with 4 losses right behind them. So pretty big game for the AFC East. We took some money on them, some sharp money on the Bills at -9. I believe that's where we opened. I think we took like $20K or something like that on the Bills -9. And it's been settling in at 9.5 since then.
Does the Von Miller injury, from a big picture standpoint, adjust the futures odd at all? For those who don't know, Von Miller, of course, torn ACL, going to be done.
We didn't adjust the futures based off that, but he's obviously a big player, great player, and he's been surprisingly good in Buffalo. I wasn't expecting that. I thought he had too many miles on him, but he's going to be missed by this team. But it's not something that we would move the futures on.
All right, John, I will go to you for this next matchup, NFC North meeting between the Lions and the Vikings. This is interesting because of where we were at when you guys put the look-ahead lineup, or as you call it, was it the 12-day line, the 10-day line?
12-day.
3 was the 12-day line for the Minnesota Vikings. They were favored. Reopens at SuperBook at 1.5, and we are now at Lions -2.5. What's behind the move here?
Well, you probably would have to argue that was a bad 12-day line. Those are tough to set. We got bet on it right away when we put it up, and then you saw the betting last week on the Vikings game. All the wise guys bet the Jets last week against Minnesota, and the Jets probably should have covered. They had first and goal twice late in the fourth quarter. They score a touchdown either time. They win that game, and all those Jets bettors get rewarded. We see all the money come in against Minnesota pretty much every week. I know they're 10-2, but the sharp guys are fading them basically every week. And I think maybe we just didn't set a good 12-day number there. Plus, Detroit's hot. Detroit, they're playing really well right now. I think they've won 4 games out of 5, and the only loss was to Buffalo. There's not much shame in that.
Yeah, good. Going back to John's point of the sharps always betting against the Vikings, it's so true. But they're also kind of, on this Lions wagon too. The sharps are getting a lot of, or supporting the Lions over the last few weeks, and they've been rewarded for that. We had a pretty big play on the Lions -1 earlier in the week, but just looking at the ticket count, it's about 55% on the Lions. And you're talking about a Vikings team that's 10-2. I would expect that maybe to even out just a little bit by the time we get to Sunday. But in the early going, you can see the support for the Lions, and I'd say most of that's like educated play.
Well, and let's be, because Jay, you and I have discussed this. I know I've talked about this with John on multiple different outlets and shows and whatever it is. They were playing it early. Sharps and educated play are not coming out and laying 2.5 for the Detroit Lions as of this point right now, right?
That's correct. That's why you saw one of the sharp plays that we took. It was -1, and I think the market still moved up from there. I don't think the sharps won't lay 2.5, but the public, right? I think the public will back or support the Vikings. I think it'll be really close. I don't think it's going to be lopsided, but the Lions are certainly getting some public support.
All right, we move on from there, and we go to the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to hit the road, take on the New York Giants. Giants coming off of a tie with John's team, the Washington Football Club, the Commanders. Eagles, 12-day line here was 6. Now we're looking at 7 in favor of Philadelphia with a total of 44.5. Jay, we go to you here. I thought it was interesting. Last week, I was making the case, and they proved it right. It was kind of like a market discount for Philly, right? The bettors had not been paid off with Philly. They had been really covering numbers consistently. So then we see the shortest number they had laid since week 2 against Tennessee, and they blew out the Titans, and it was relatively comfortable. Now full 7 on the road against New York.
And I think you're going to see that again. I think you're going to get some more support for the Eagles here. Like you said, we opened 6.5, but I looked at this game before we came on the air. It's like, we have no money on this game. I mean, I think it's a very interesting matchup. I think it's a big matchup, and the big scene here. But as far as the interest from just the general public, there's absolutely like 0 tickets on this game. It's unfortunate, I guess. I think it'll pick up once we get to the weekend, but once the Eagles get rolling again, I wouldn't be surprised if they garner a lot of general public support.
Will the Giants go over their win total? It was 7, so they're sitting on 7. The rest of their schedule is Philly, Washington, Minnesota, Indianapolis, and Philadelphia.
Yes.
You think they're going to win one of those?
I'm over.
Okay. All right.
Where do they play Minnesota?
I'll tell you right now, they are going to be at Minnesota.
It's going to be close.
It's going to be tight, right?
Did you say the Colts?
They get the Colts at home.
Okay.
Should be able to beat the
What is that?
Sorry,
Okay.
JVT.
It's a matter of fact. Okay.
They better win that game.
I'd like to have an over ticket right now.
I've got over 7, and they're stuck in neutral. And I got to tell you, it's a push. That's great, but
They call that a free roll, John.
That's what they say. I don't know what that. I don't know what it is, but I want my money. Is essentially what I'm saying. So I want to win money on this.
You'll get it.
Okay. What if they
Congrats.
get another tie? Should that count as a win? 2 ties?
2, yeah. Would I get that? Is that a house rule? 2
No.
ties equals 1 win, so you're over your win.
It's NFL win totals, not
okay.
NFL win plus tie totals.
Okay, I like it.
The World Cup fans like that. I was giving them,
3-way line.
There you go.
For football, we should start doing. You guys should start doing that. Huh?
We talked about doing that. We talked about doing that for overtime in progress wagering, having a 3-way price. It's funny.
Good.
Eagles win, Giants win, draw.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Buccaneers at 49ers. We'll move on from there to an interesting game, narrative-wise, and I guess from a standings standpoint. John, we will go to you. Brock Purdy era begins for the San Francisco 49ers last week. Good news for the 49ers, by the way, because Jimmy G does not need surgery, could come back in the postseason, it seems. But this game in particular, what is the adjustment for a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo from a point spread perspective to a 7th-round rookie in Brock Purdy?
Well, you got to make a pretty big adjustment, even though Jimmy G doesn't really move the needle too much. We have no idea what to make of Brock Purdy. We have no idea what he's capable of at all. I'm sure that they're going to bring in the oars, so to speak, and just run the ball, rely on their defense. Luckily for them in this matchup, they're playing a Tampa Bay team that doesn't really score at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's funny how every Buccaneers win is like the same formula where they've got like 3 points going to the 4th quarter, and their defense has kept them in the game the whole way. And then Brady leads 1 or 2 touchdown drives, and then they talk about Brady, and they give him all the credit for like a 13-10 win. I find it a little amusing, but they're going to keep this game as low scoring as possible. That's what the 49ers are going to try to do, and just make sure Brock Purdy doesn't lose the game for them. I thought the Niners were the best team in the NFC with Jimmy G, and I think they still are going to be there in the playoffs. Like you guys mentioned, Minnesota, if the 49ers get the 3 seed and they win that wild card game at home, they probably would play the Vikings on the road in round 2. They could definitely win that game. If we assume Minnesota's going to be the 2 seed, why not? So I think the 49ers could still get as far as the NFC Championship game.
And don't forget about the Cowboys and Eagles. We talked about the Cowboys last week. And for some reason, they're a little bit under the radar. Maybe because the Eagles are sharing that limelight out of the East. But, I still think the Cowboys are the best team. But, with Jimmy back there, I was right up there with you on the 49ers. But I just can't see it with Brock. And maybe Jimmy comes back. Maybe he comes back. But I agree. I think that's going to be a very conservative game plan here. The Sharps already took 4. We took some sharp money at +4. So, they're already going against Brock. And I wouldn't be surprised if that continues. Even though, unless it go, I can't imagine this going back to 4. I can see it going down to 3.
So the SuperBook over in New Jersey still has San Francisco 49ers at 10-1. So it's a 2-part question for you guys. First off, it doesn't seem like you made that much of an adjustment, right, from a future standpoint after this Jimmy Garoppolo news. Because how much of this is Kyle Shanahan? Like Shanahan has a lot of respect. I think sharp bettors like Kyle Shanahan a lot. It's why this 49ers team is consistently ranked pretty high. The roster is really good, but Shanahan is one of the more respected guys that has an impact, it seems.
Well, I think John hit it on the head. He said Jimmy G's wasn't really worth that much.
No.
I think that, no disrespect.
Well,
but
they tried
Jimmy.
They tried to bench Jimmy G for a rookie quarterback or a second-year quarterback that they didn't really know what they had there either.
Yeah, what was that in July?
They made a point to trade up in the draft. They invested all this draft capital in Trey Lance, and they tried, even though Jimmy G was like 1 drive away from the Super Bowl last year, they tried to turn the team over to Lance, and he got hurt. So they didn't really want Jimmy G to be in there in the first place. I mean, we'll see what Purdy can do, but I don't know how big this loss really is because Garoppolo wasn't really asked to do much to begin with.
Well, they did say Jimmy G wasn't, well, they didn't literally say it, but they did act like it, that Jimmy G wasn't their guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, they made that clear.
For sure.
All right, move on to arguably the game of the week. The Dolphins continue their stay along the West Coast. They'll be on the road against the Los Angeles Chargers. A SuperBook in terms of the opener for this game, or as a reference, the look-ahead line. Originally Miami -1. They get beat up by San Francisco. Tua gets injured, and yet we see this adjustment. 3 now with shaded juice to the favorite, -120. So with this one, what is behind an adjustment here, Jay, where a team goes on the road, gets beat relatively thoroughly, and then now gets to take on the Los Angeles Chargers, and that number goes up from the 12-day line?
Yeah, it really depends on what how serious the injury is and what it does to his playing ability. Is he 80%? Is he 90%? 95%? We're not sure. We did take some money, some sharp money at -3 even. So now it's -$3.20. So it was kind of moving in that direction. I can't even remember who the backup is. Do you remember?
Jacoby Brissett?
No, I believe it's Teddy Bridgewater or Skylar Thompson.
Oh, it's Bridgewater.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bridgewater.
Is it Bridgewater?
Well, Skylar Thompson got into the game. Bridgewater is part that I think he might be still hurt, but still, Skylar Thompson was the guy who got onto the field in the loss to the 49ers.
Well, that's always going to determine, how much of an adjustment it is.
Mm-hmm.
That
Who
drop
is
off.
Skylar Thompson?
He is also a rookie. Played at Kansas State.
Never heard of him
from. He had an incredible preseason.
Never heard of such
about?
a person in my life. And I thought Brissett was still playing for the Dolphins.
Nah, hold on. I feel like you've heard of Skylar Thompson with the company that you keep, who are very big Kansas State fans.
I don't have any Kansas State fans in my life. I've got a lot of KU fans.
Okay, all right.
I got a lot of KU fans. I don't associate with anybody that went to Kansas State.
Kev.
It's a good reference that nobody's going to understand.
Okay,
so we move on from there.
I try to keep it low.
the Miami Dolphins. So, from an action standpoint, this is what I find interesting about this game. Can I ask you guys? So the Chargers open up as road favorites against the Raiders last week, and then it gets bet all the way. We know what happens, and they lose that game. The Raiders win relatively comfortably. I think the rating for the Chargers seems kind of be all over the place, right? The market had a lot of respect for the Chargers.
A lot of injuries, John.
That's a good point.
That line moved late in the week because a lot of the Chargers players were ruled out of that game.
Okay.
And it looked like the line move was correct because the Raiders took care of business on Sunday. The Chargers are always injured, I feel like.
It's very true.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about Tua potentially being hurt, and whoever the backup is, whoever this made-up person is you're talking about, Justin Herbert is hurt. Justin Herbert is not 100%. He hasn't been 100% the whole season. And I think if the Chargers don't make the playoffs, that'll be a big reason why.
Well, his receivers were hurt too.
Oh, his receivers are always hurt.
Oh, he hasn't had a full receiver corps.
Mike Williams gets hurt on the way to the game. Those guys are always banged up.
Allen's the same way.
Keenan Allen got hurt the bye week.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Keenan Allen, he got hurt the bye week.
Could happen to anybody.
Yep.
Those guys are always banged up. And Herbert, what was it, like week 2 against Jacksonville he got hurt or something like, or no, he played against Jacksonville when he was hurt.
Yeah.
They should have maybe held him out at the beginning of the season because I feel like he hasn't been right the whole way.
It was a Thursday night game. I think it was the first one where he took a shot in the ribs and then looked terrible on the first throw and then laced like a 47-yard dime down the field the next
That was the first Amazon Prime game.
It was.
Those are hard to find.
For the record, Teddy Bridgewater is officially listed as the second guy on the depth chart for the Miami Dolphins, but he has been carrying a questionable tag almost every single game, so Skylar Thompson did get that snap against the San Francisco 49ers. So just putting it out there.
Thanks for clearing that up.
There you go.
I'm an influencer, but I'm also a man of truth. So we need to put that out there. All right, Jay, I go to you here. Any big tickets, big bets that are worth noting in the week that has been?
We had that larger wager on the Dolphins -3 even for $35K there. I mean, not too bad. We had some more money on the Lions at -1 and mentioned earlier that we had the Bills at -9. So that's the only thing so far. Nothing, outside of that. I haven't seen anything UFC-wise. I know there's been a lot of canceled fights, right, including the main bout. So we haven't seen any big UFC fights at this time. Yeah. Just a couple of bigger NFL plays, and that's it right now.
We are pressed for time, but I would love to pick your guys' brains on the hullabaloo around the UFC and the betting kerfuffle that has happened recently. But
well, we can't do that on the air, John.
Well, I know that's what I'm saying.
Come on.
We'd love to pick
talk offline.
Okay, all right, off the
Once
record.
the cameras stop rolling. Rig, I don't know if I trust him with that kind of material.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you guys are talking about.
A super contest update. Heineken 21, 4-1, alone in first place, 46 out of a possible 65 points, hitting at 71%. Last week, was that the first week of a 6-week and 3-week contest? Is that the case?
Well, it would have been the last week. Yeah, I guess you're right. Week 13.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Touche.
Just asking.
And you, according to this rundown I have, you went 4-1.
Inspired by your chiding of me last week, I was like, not only am I going to get these things in, I'm gonna go for it all.
With a homer pick on Indianapolis, I see.
Yeah, well, a homer pick, or I don't think there's going to be many people picking this side, and it was the right thing to do. Not picking them is the case.
I see that. Oh, did you submit those in person?
I did. I was here. I was here.
Oh, we do have a phone app.
Mm-hmm.
I like to get out. Although, can I tell you? No, I'm not going to tell you. Actually, I'll tell you.
No, tell me.
It was Saturday at 10 p.m. and I sat up and I was like, "Oh, I gotta go."
I know we are pressed for time. The schedule is the same every week.
I know.
I mean, it's always Saturdays. It closes at the same time.
John,
the lines come out Wednesday.
As you know, I'm a worker. I got a lot going on. All right, I got a lot of jobs. I've got a lot of offspring. I've got a lot of things going on in my life. All right,
you're a busy guy.
That's right. I'm
saying the schedule pretty consistent.
Yeah, you guys are busy too, so we got to get. I'm getting it. Let's go.
Okay.
College football playoff lines. They are up. I don't want to open the can of worms of. Do you think it was the right 4 teams that are in? So we'll just start with the games themselves. Fiesta Bowl, Michigan, TCU. This is going to be interesting. Jay, I'll start with you because I think a lot of people initially saw this and were like, "Oh man, TCU stinks. Michigan's going to roll them." The support's been on TCU early, has it not?
It has, and it's from the sharp guys. Actually, they took 9, took 8.5. We're down to 8 now.
Wow.
And as far outside of that, though, the ticket count looks pretty much 50-50, but some sharp play early on TCU. And I agree, because a lot of people were talking TCU down. Then we opened up and all the sharp play came in on the Frogs. So, it really negated all that, all those discussions, I should say. But right now, it's all TCU. I mean, for the sharps, the ticket count's really even. Yeah.
Well, that's who's probably betting a game that's several weeks away.
That's right.
The public is probably not really looking at a game that's on December 31st.
It's a very good point. They're going to walk in and they're still going to take, if it gets there, 7.5 with TCU.
Most of the money will come on New Year's Eve.
The total, you guys opened 61.5. You're down to 59.5. Anything notable there? Or is that just adjusting with the market?
We saw right away. We saw a sharp bet over 59. We went to 61 off that bet because this is like right when we opened, before there really was a whole bunch of a big market on the game, I should say. And we brought it back down because the wise guys came back the other way. So good two-way action on the total.
I think it's very typical betting pattern. So we open these things up. You get a slew of bets come in for the first couple of days, and then it's just quiet. It goes off the chart or everybody's menu for a couple weeks, and then everybody starts picking it up. I mean, Murray won't bet it until New Year's Eve, but
I already bet the game. Okay. I bet both the games. I couldn't wait.
Did you lay 9.5?
Wait, no, I didn't, because I was working on Sunday. I can't bet at work. No, I didn't.
No, you didn't. All right.
I haven't bet the games yet.
What about Georgia and Ohio State Peach Bowl? 6.5, 61.5 current number to the SuperBook. I bet this one already.
Okay.
I laid it with Georgia.
Were you at work when you bet it?
Actually, I think it was.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I'm allowed to do that though because I'm a media member and an influencer. It's actually it is pushed upon me. Do it.
We do edit this, right?
Yeah, of course.
Anything notable here?
Get all that out of there.
I'll ask you this, John, before we get out of here really quickly. Does this get to 7?
I don't know if it will here.
Okay.
I mean, we so much of the market on this game was at 7. We put up 6.5 on purpose because we thought 7 was a little bit too high for this game. Ohio State would be favored against Michigan or TCU in the championship game if they win this game. I think this number is a little high, and if I had bet it on Sunday when the numbers came out, I would have bet on that side, but I couldn't because I was at work.
Jay chuckles at my shocked what? A lot of people would be, they lost at home. They shouldn't be favored. That's the way it works.
What would you make Georgia and the Texans?
That's a good one.
Sorry.
That's good for TikTok. People like that on TikTok.
Georgia minus 4?
Like, what do you make Georgia against the Bears? Like, I'm really not sure. I haven't really thought about it.
Healthy Justin Fields is gonna. I don't know.
Hey, the Bears screwed me on Sunday. I'll tell you that much. I would have gone 4-1 in the contest. Thanks a lot, Hoagland.
Bears might be up to a 3-point underdog to Georgia the way Justin Fields is playing. As always, you can follow us on social at SuperBook Sports, superbook.com. Stay on top of all the latest odds, boosts, and promos. And of course, please, if you like what you hear, take a second, like, rate, review, and subscribe. And we will be back with you next week for another edition of the Oddsmakers presented by SuperBook Sports.